fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home. Don Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Steve? Welcome, everybody, back to the show. Thank you for coming aboard and listening. We're coming at you here on Wednesday night, May 13th. We are officially about a quarter of the way through the season here. So we're going to talk baseball. I feel like a quarter of the way through the season, you can have some stronger beliefs without having to preface everything with the two words of "it's early." I think that is dead and gone now.
Absolutely. Can say some things with conviction, and we will certainly do that tonight. You guys can get more content at Tablesetters Pod on IG and on X. Devin running the X machine over there and giving an update. We're up to 5.2 thousand followers over there, thanks to Devin's notable posts on a daily basis. So if you're looking for some insight into some matchups and some fresh matchups and what's going on for each day, at Tablesetters Pod, where you can find it.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody getting behind that, supporting it. It kind of is blown up for us. Really, like Steve said, has pushed our following way up. As I've said the last couple weeks, I really do hope that some of those followers on Twitter, those new followers, are also becoming new listeners. And those of you that have been with us for a long, long time, way before we started doing the notables and all that stuff, we appreciate you guys so much. And if you like what you hear and you've never left us a review, please do so. It really helps us, get found in the algorithm and all that good stuff.
So with that being said, we're going to hop into our opening say and talk about what's going around in baseball. Breaking out the old organ over there, and here we are talking about the two West divisions. Devin, in the opening say, is talking about the Athletics and the Padres as we're recording on Wednesday. They reside in first place. So we can start with each team, and there's definitely two different stories to discuss here. San Diego leading the National League West over the Dodgers, most notably 24-17. But I think the biggest story, Devin, is how they rank near the bottom of all MLB offensive categories. 223 batting average as a team, ranks 29th in baseball. Their OPS is 667, which ranks 29th. 297 on base percentage, that ranks 28th. And a 370 slugging percentage, that ranks 24th. But again, despite all those struggles, the Padres took 2 or 3 from the San Francisco Giants, finished the following series against the St. Louis Cardinals with a winning week despite collecting only 14 total hits across the 4 games against St. Louis. So we can talk all day about it. And I think a lot of the scope is on Fernando Tatis Jr. and the lack of power, but this is a lineup that hasn't gotten completely going. Opposing starters recorded 20 quality starts against San Diego over the club's first 40 games, and the Padres averaged fewer than 3 runs over the first 6 innings of games, ranking 24th in Major League Baseball. So I guess you can take two different routes in this. They're in first place despite all those things, or you can say, well, the bottom will eventually fall out.
Yeah, man, I have the same train of thought here. The plus, you all those offensive statistics, I had some of those as well, like clearly makes you pause. The +1 run differential certainly makes this seem like at least some smoke and mirrors. Like even if you're an optimist, you have to be like, I'm not sure if I'm fully bought in here. But like you said, like if you do want to be the ultimate optimist here, you can say, well, if the record's this good when they're not really playing all that well, or their best, imagine how good they could be. I guess you could look at it that way. Like, who are you? Glass half full, glass half empty person? Kind of depends on, the eye of the beholder, I guess. I did look back because one thing I do feel like, watching San Diego from afar, I do feel like they've had their fair share or more than their fair share of like late game heroics. Just watching them, I'm as a New Yorker, I'm not going to sit here and say I watch every San Diego game beginning to end, but Steve and I do keep track of the entire league, even though we're here on the East Coast. They are 6-4 in 1-run games, which certainly helps to win more of those types of games than you lose. I mean, I almost expected that number to be bigger. Like, all right, something's got to give here. How have they managed this record when you look at the stats and they're not all that great and some are downright bad. I expected maybe they're like 9-1 in 1-run games, and not quite. But the 6-4 is still not bad. Probably better than most teams can say. On the pitching side, Michael King and Randy Vasquez have been a pleasant surprise. And some people, Vasquez, I think everyone would label as a surprise. Some people might listen and be like, why are you saying Michael King's a pleasant surprise? He's been pretty good for a pretty long time. He was really, really, really bad in spring training. And I know, especially for veteran pitchers, you kind of like ignore those stats, but like he was staggeringly bad in spring training. So I was a little bit worried about him going into the season, but he's been very good. And without that, I don't know where they would be. The bullpen, obviously, this is the story about San Diego for years now. The bullpen's great, right? As a whole, it's great. Mason Miller individually, honestly, he might not only be a Cy Young candidate, he might be a MVP candidate, as crazy as that sounds. With how meaningful he is to that team, being able to keep those late leads, those slim leads, barely ever let up base runners. It's just probably a huge confidence boost for them to have him back here, especially when you're a team that does not put that many runs up on the board. Going forward, I am intrigued by the Lucas Giolito addition. Apparently, he's going to pitch for the big league club this weekend. I loved that move, especially considering the word around Joe Musgrove is that there is no word. Like there's like no timeline still. So that doesn't sound great. Nick Pivetta, hopefully they get back at some point, but to add another veteran pitcher out there, that's a plus for sure. But I mean, you named it. I'm not going to repeat all the offensive stuff. It's rough. It certainly does not read like a first place team, especially in the NL West with the Los Angeles Dodgers. But here we are. Like they're 16th in team ERA. So even on the other side, not anything crazy impressive. You named all the offensive stats, some of them downright bad. I will say this, for what it's worth, PECOTA, those projections, they have not been very moved by this hot start for San Diego. Those projections are updated every single day based on what's going on. They still have the Dodgers winning the West at 100 games or 100 wins, and the Padres at a distant second place at just 82 wins, despite the hot start.
So I do know that the news cycle does move fast, but we want to at least mention the Castellanos bat situation, hitting a home run with Tatis's bat. The media asked him about it post-game. Castellanos with a straight face said that was rude. You know, I think this Tatis story continues, and you can point to the underlying numbers that he's still hitting the ball hard, but without the pop, he's right now among a small list of people that have a certain number of bats and are not hitting for power. And there's really, you don't want to be on that list. He's a guy that can potentially hit 50 home runs. He has to get off the snide eventually. You'd have to believe that eventually it will come in bulk for him. He's done it historically, but we have to see it to believe it at this point. You mentioned Lucas Giolito. He made his final rehab start for the San Antonio Missions. He allowed 1 run over 6 innings. As you mentioned, that's a big get for them. Walker Buehler's another guy I want to talk to. Turned his best start as a Padre against the St. Louis Cardinals. 6 innings while allowing 3 hits and no walks. He threw 17 first pitch strikes, which was something that a lot of the San Diego media was talking about, to the first 21 batters he faced, and used all 7 of his pitches. So if they can get Walker Buehler going, Lucas Giolito, you mentioned Nick Pivetta, if they can come back, they can figure it out. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that this team, they can be better, but I think this is more of a story of perfect storm because, as Pagoda, you said, you referenced what they were doing. I'm not as much moved either. Those offensive stats usually catch up to you, especially when you're middle of the ground pitching wise. Eventually, they're going to be due for regression. But let's talk about the American League side. The Athletics currently lead the American League West at 21-20, despite ranking 21st in MLB with a 4.45 ERA. So they lost on Tuesday to the Cardinals. Jeffrey Springs allowed 4 runs during the first inning before settling down, finishing with 5 innings and 7 hits allowed, 4 runs earned, 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. Nick Kurtz drove in a run in the second inning before Shea Langoliers doubled home 2. Then he hit his 100th home run. So I want to give congrats to Shea Langoliers, your boy and your fantasy team. 100th home run in his career during the 8th inning. And then JJ Weatherholt, the proud owner of more home runs than Shohei Ohtani, wound up hitting a 2-run bomb. But again, we're here talking about the Athletics. And this is a little bit unusual, similar to the National League counterpart. They're in a spot where no one really expected them to be. And as far as their pitching goes, they're playing in a ballpark. We've said it time and time again. It's a minor league ballpark. this is another team you have to look at and say, is it possible that they continue this up for the remainder of the year? And again, I'm looking at it as probably not. The Athletics ranked 21st in ERA while leading the AL West. That's not going to get the job done. This is the case of a perfect storm of the Mariners right now are not humming. We'll talk about Cal Raleigh and one of the reasons they're struggling. There's a lot of things in that National League West and the American League West are allowing these two teams to be at the top.
Yeah. So when I really tried to take a step back and look at this and say, like, what's the actual story here? Like the A's being in first place a quarter of the way through the season it's a cool story. But here's the thing. If you really think about it, if someone told you preseason that the A's would be 21-20 at this point of the season, I don't think many of us would have blinked at that. We've been like, okay, yeah, I could see that. Sure. About a 500 team. Like, it's not staggering. We know they're a good offensive team. Right, 21-20, that doesn't sound crazy. However, if you told me that that would be good enough to be in first place currently in the AL West, that I would be surprised by. So the record, I'm not surprised by. I'm surprised by it being good enough to be in first place. To me, this speaks less about how good or bad the A's are and more about how weak the AL West and maybe the American League in general, by the way, has been. 4 teams above 500 in the entire American League. And one of those is the 1 game over 500 Athletics. So like that very well could be 3 teams, very soon, only over 500. Also speaks more to how disappointing the Mariners have been, like you kind of alluded to. How mediocre the Texas Rangers have been. Again, they got off to a pretty decent start, and now they look kind of like the same team they have in the past couple years. Disappointing. With that being said, we do want to talk about the A's and not just brush it aside like it's not a story. It is. I do wonder if this keeps up, if they can hang around in the mix for first place, in the mix for a postseason berth, how aggressive the A's might be at the deadline. You said it. Clearly, the pitching is the part of their team that they would need to improve if they really wanted to give themselves a shot, not just to get to the postseason, but to like make a little noise in the postseason. When I look at it, I mean, Aaron Savali's pitched very, very well for them. Luis Severino's been okay. Jeffrey Springs has been really good at times and then not so great at others. That 1, 2, 3 is not terrible as far as the regular season goes, but like when they're pitching their best, at least. The thing is, like postseason ball, like there's no ace there, in my opinion. Arguably, there might not be a number 2, like a quality number 2 guy in that rotation at that point. So you do have to wonder if they do hang around here, are they motivated enough to sell off a little bit of the future to get something to help them this season? Because they might think, well, a lot of our future is already here. So the guys down in AAA and AA, we can afford to move them. Like, is that the way they actually feel? And remember, like, I think their entire goal, and they've said this out loud, is to get to Las Vegas with a playoff worthy, come watch us worthy team. So if their eyes are still down the road there, they may not want to mortgage any of the future. I don't see them sending any pitching away because they don't have any. So like, I don't think you can go look in AAA and AA and look at your top pitching prospects and sell them off. But like a Leo DeVries, who they just got from Mason Miller, you'd have to get a lot back because A's fans would see that as you're not only trading DeVries away, but like you're now getting rid of the guy we got for Mason Miller. So like it'd have to be a pretty good return to get a guy like that. And honestly, his ETA is actually 2026. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but like he could be added to the fray this year potentially. So I look at that and I wonder how aggressive they are. Do you think they would be motivated enough? Say they're just a little bit above 500, but the division is still bad. They're right in the first place mix around the deadline. Do you think they convince themselves to make a big move or try to make a big move, or they, more so go around the edges and just try to stay put and kind of play with house money?
I think it's more of staying around the edges because, as you said before, the plan has always been get to Vegas with the team and this core and learning. And I think for them to either get into the postseason and potentially playing in a longer series against some of these American League foes, that's good experience for this young core. And I think, as you mentioned, the young players are there. They have what is essentially going to be their offense going forward for foreseeably the next decade. The goal for them is to not try to jump any of these steps. And I know it's hard because you see an opening here, especially as you mentioned before, with the American League West being really just playing as poorly as it is right now. You can see an opening for potentially competing for a division title, and maybe you can get your hopes up and beat the delusions up for competing for a World Series. But you have to stay the course. You see it in all sports where there is a process. And I know that the Philadelphia 76ers made that their thing, but there is a process for teams to just follow the roadmap and don't jump any of these steps with fool's gold. Like you mentioned before, there's steps in here where, again, you look at the underlying stats and you take a look under the hood of this athletic squad. There's not a lot that makes you believe that they can competitively win a championship this year. So again, if it's going to make you a fringe playoff team that's eventually going to maybe win a round, does that make you believe that they can get an American League Championship Series and hang a banner? To me, that would have to be the biggest reason you forego what is happening here. I just think you have to look at this as getting experience for the team. And that's what the Athletics are looking at right now. That is essentially, when you have a young team, speaking at it from the perspective of, I'm a New York Islanders fan, what they did last year and what Matthew Darsh and the whole team did last year, they made a lot of missteps because they looked at the way the team was playing, outpacing a lot of their goals and where they were supposed to be. And they might have set the franchise back a little bit because of that reason.
Yeah, I'm just laughing a little bit over here to myself because you mentioned hanging a banner. I'm just picturing hanging a banner in Sacramento. Like, where does it even go? And honestly, like, they may be even less motivated because they don't have that legitimate home fan base, like pushing them to like
no
go
one cares.
further.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
No one cares.
Like, it's kind of like that. But if that's the case, then I wonder, like, do these prospects actually come help fortify them at some point in the season? Like, we just saw Henry Bolte. It's either Bolte or Bolte. I know it's not Bolt. There's either an E or A at the end of that. But Henry Bolte is already up, just got called up, one of their top prospects, to kind of help fill the injury gaps. You got Jacob Wilson that went down. Max Muncy's been down. Denzel Clark's on the IL as well. So Bolte's up here. If you don't know about him, what he was doing in AAA is pretty eye-popping. 12 home runs and 17 stolen bases at AAA in just 37 games this year. Now, they do play Las Vegas, which the AAA Las Vegas team is always known. If you're a pitcher down there, your stats look worse than you actually are. I remember Matt Harvey, before he got to the Mets AAA affiliate, it was actually the Las Vegas, I think it was the Las Vegas 50-something, 50, I don't know, it was the Aviator. No, that might be them now. They're the Las Vegas team. I'm not going to get into it, but I remember when they called Harvey up, I remember seeing his numbers at AAA. They weren't good. It's like, this is interesting. And then obviously he came up and was just a bolt of lightning for that team for a couple years. So it's deceiving what you do in the Vegas AAA setting, but still, this guy does have some tools. And remember, you could say that the power numbers are inflated, but he's playing in Vegas. He's playing in Sacramento now. So like, maybe they'll still be inflated with that as his home ballpark. There are some people talking about, like, if he plays well, he could stick maybe as the center fielder. Denzel Clark maybe when he gets healthy, goes down in AAA, works on the swing and miss. It's not like he's killing it offensively. Obviously, Denzel Clark, unbelievable in the outfield, but we'll see what comes of that. I think about the pitching side, though, because offensively, we know that's their strength. Biggest pitching prospect coming into the year, or the closest, I should say, was Gage Jump. Not pitching well this season so far. The numbers aren't good at AAA. So unless that improves, I don't see that happening as of now. Still plenty of time. Wei and Lin has been fantastic at AA, but again, AA, like, I know some guys skip ahead or get just a cup of coffee in AAA and come up, but for most of the time, you want your pitchers to prove it a little bit at AAA before they come up to the bigs. His timeline suggests next year more than it does this year. 1.85 ERA in AA, though. He's definitely opening some eyes there, but I do wonder, like, do they just sit pat and hope for the best, and like we said, kind of play with house money, or do they get a little creative here? Maybe Leo DeVries, if he tears it up, he does get a cup of coffee or gets a look, but the A's are fun. That's what I'll say. Like, I wanted them to be in the mix. I think a lot of people, just baseball fans, wanted them to be in the mix because they have some really fun young players. And don't forget, like, Kurtz, he's playing well in some capacity, right? Getting on base a lot, but we're still waiting for one of those home run barrages where he just goes off. So there could be more to come from this offense.
For sure. And just some housekeeping on the fly here. The New York Mets AAA affiliate was the Las Vegas 51, so you had to correct, and then they rebranded to the Las Vegas Aviators. So 2013 to 2018, they were the 51, so you had to correct. That fits the timeline for one Matt Harvey. But before we move out of the NL West, there was a conversation about a trade that went down less than 3 full seasons after Patrick Bailey established himself as one of the premier defensive catchers. He's moving on. with his 2 Gold Gloves packed in his bag, he's heading over to the Cleveland Guardians for pitching prospect Matt Wilkinson and a competitive balanced draft pick. So this is a move that kind of got buried throughout the weekend. And, San Francisco Giants, very much a fan of Patrick Bailey. Everyone's talking about him. How will ABS change the way these defensive catchers move around as far as their value? Clearly, he's still a very valuable player in that way. And I think this kind of speaks to the bigger story of Buster Posey's tenure of running baseball operations and maybe what he feels that his team under the tutelage of Tony Vitello and what this team looks like. Because, last year, you can't forget aggressively trading for Rafi Devers. And now this team feels entirely different, entering the trade 15-23 when they made the move, an offensive ranking last in MLB, runs per game, a walk rate sitting near the bottom and on base percentage, WRC plus, all the categories. And offensively, he's never going to be the guy that's going to carry you guys. He's a Gold Glove defensive catcher, hitting this year, hitting 146, 213, 183 through 89 plate appearances. But what makes this decision so fast? What, Patrick Bailey?
Those numbers.
Am I freezing a little bit?
No. I was sorry. I was just kind of yeah. The numbers are gross offensively.
Yeah.
They're gross.
He. But I think since debuting in 2013, we looked at just again conversation, dominating framing, defensive metrics, leading the majors in nearly every major catching category, while becoming 5th most valuable catcher in baseball over the stretch, despite his career offensive struggles. So few players better represented in modern baseball. The balance between what elite defense can do and the offensive limitations of the position. I guess my conversation to you, we don't want to spend all day on this, but what is the direction of the San Francisco Giants? Is this a full, we're pulling the plug on what the vision of what Vitello had for this team? I'm not saying Patrick Bailey is a guy, but is this indicative of potentially pulling the plug on Rafi Devers and maybe move on from other veteran players around this team?
Well, I think that could be happening soon. There's already been some reports that the Giants would love to move some of these big contracts, even a guy like Devers, who they've barely had that long, right? Even some rumors about Logan Webb might be a guy that's dangled. They don't really want to do that, but depending on what the return is, it's something they could do. Robbie Ray seems like an obvious trade candidate. We could go through the list. So I think that's a different story on its own than this trade. This trade, I don't exactly see it as giving up for the Giants. Patrick Bailey, I've read some things that said, Buster Posey was getting a little sick of the Patrick Bailey stuff where yes, great defensively, but just nothing on the offensive side. You might as well bat your pitcher in place for him at that point. 146. That's not a major leaguer. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but I'm a little surprised by the reaction to this trade. What I've seen is I feel like everyone is praising Cleveland for the trade and just not acknowledging San Francisco's side, just talking about how bad they've been. Patrick Bailey was losing playing time anyway. He was almost becoming the third catcher for this team. They've had some other guys come up and do some good things. So I think that's a bigger part of the story than people are letting on. I don't think this is a sign of an immediate breakdown here of the roster. I think he's losing playing time. And the return they got for him, in my opinion, is fantastic. I haven't heard many people praising the Giants for the return they got, but you just sold away a catcher that was losing playing time for you anyway, that was batting 146. And I know in this day and age, this world of baseball that we live in, people are going to praise players for some of the cool baseball savant stuff they see. And when they see Patrick Bailey's name at the top of the framing section, right, people fall in love with the guy. But he's batting 146. I know some of the defense can maybe even that out, but I don't know. If he's hitting 210, okay, maybe. 146 is 146. So I don't get me wrong. I like it for Cleveland because Cleveland is a pitching development driven team. The reason they get as far as they do, other than Jose Ramirez, is because they're able to develop these pitchers. You see what Parker Messick's doing, Gavin Williams, to have another great catcher to team with them, I think is great for that franchise. They already have Austin Hedges, who is also all glove, 0 bat. So we'll see how that works out for them. But I'm not going to kill them for that because Bo Naylor has not turned into what Bo Naylor should or was expected to turn into offensively. So sending him down to AAA, I'm fine with that as well. Let him develop, try to figure it out down there. But for the Giants, you got Tugboat, right? Wilkinson, who is leading the Eastern League in ERA, had a really good debut for the San Francisco AA affiliate. Like, he's nothing to sneeze at. He's been around as a pretty high prospect for a while, like the profile of that guy. And then the 29th pick in the draft, like, you get another pick in the first round in what I consider a loaded draft class this year, even down at 29. I think they're going to be able to grab someone pretty solid. So to me, this was a win for San Francisco. I think you could say it's a win for Cleveland too. Maybe it's the rare win-win trade. Cleveland apparently has coveted Patrick Bailey for like 2 or 3 years now, and finally gets that job done. But I just don't think enough positivity has been put on San Francisco's side of the trade. And I think sometimes when your team is doing poorly and when the moves you've made recently are not working out, any move you make in the current time is just kind of brushed aside, where I don't think that necessarily should be how this is looked at. I think it was a good move for San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think ultimately what we're looking for the Giants, especially in this time of struggling, is developing an identity. And some of the stories that have been buried underneath the trade really has since been spring training. It hasn't just been Patrick Bailey. It hasn't just been Tony Vitello, but there have been some philosophical tension internally about what this team will be, the pitching staff, the catcher's overall role. And this might be indicative of kind of what we saw in Queens with the Mets, where they're going to weed out the people that don't fit the vision. And Patrick Bailey, as you said before, defensively, he's a wizard, but offensively, he's not giving anything to the team. So you might as well let Jesus Rodriguez and Daniel Susac, 2 inexperienced catchers acquired through previous trades, get the playing time, because it's got to be better offensively. Because even people that are talking about Jesus Rodriguez, the athleticism, the versatility, he's improving the framing ability. And even if he be half as good defensively as Bailey is, and then offensively he can give you more, it's a no-brainer, especially if it's affecting the camaraderie of the team, because that seems like it's an issue in the Bay Area right now. It feels like that is kind of the issue with the Giants. Outside of their struggles, it seems like there's a continuity issue of the leadership and the stories that were coming out. And I understand losing does that and does bring it to the surface, but it really feels like there is something going on that is bigger than just losing games in the baseball field.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, I'm a Mets fan, obviously, and in a way, the Mets and Giants feel very similar this year, but not exactly for the same reasons. Like, two teams that are underperforming, have big payrolls. But when you look at the Mets, they at least have some of the excuse of, like, a lot of their stars are on the injured list. Like, whether it be Lindor, Soto earlier, right? Luis Robert, who they traded for, like, up and down. Francisco Alvarez is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks now with a meniscus tear. Like, it's just Jorge Polanco, who was an offseason signing. Up and down the list, they have so many guys on the IL. They're doing other things poorly anyway, and the team doesn't look like it was very well constructed. But on the Giants side, it's even stranger because you have Matt Chapman out there. You have Willie Adames out there. You have Rafi Devers out there, and they're all playing terribly, so far below their averages and the back of their baseball card. So to have your 3 main stars all having some of their worst seasons of all time at the same time, I mean, that's brutal. But they're also doing strange things. I mean, Tony Vitello has looked like a clown a few times this year. And you and I were both fans of that signing and hopeful because we thought it'd be a cool trend to get some college coaches up here, managers. Like, it's just an interesting story, right? He's looked like he's not made for the job a few times, whether it be going out to the mound to make a pitching change, and the bullpen coach, Jesse Chavez, has no idea who he wants to send. And they're like jumping up and down trying to figure it out. It's embarrassing at the major league level. You call up Bryce Eldridge, your number 1 prospect, a power hitter, which is what you need right now. Your offense is anemic. And you basically admit out loud that for now, he's just going to be a pinch hitter most of the time. What? Why would you call him up at that point? Right? Let him continue to develop in AAA if you are just going to use him as a pinch hitter. So there has been some head-scratching things in San Francisco. But I will say, tonight they go for the sweep of the Dodgers, which, what better way to get yourselves going than to be able to finish that off? It's Robbie Ray against Shohei Ohtani as far as on the mound tonight. We know how good Shohei has been on the mound this year. If they were able to finish that sweep tonight, what that would do for that team's confidence could be pretty significant.
Yeah, especially going to Dodger Stadium and doing that, no matter where they're at in the standings. We know that they do hate each other. We'll keep you guys updated on the Giants and what's happening here. We'll see if it's indicative of a trend or it's just getting Patrick Bailey out of town because it was a philosophical difference of how they were really managing this pitching staff. But let's head to the meat of the order and talk about the rest of the news around baseball.
We have the meat.
All right. As we said before, we talked about the AL West, and one of the reasons why the Mariners are struggling, a big reason is Big Dumper has turned into Big Slumber. And Cal Raleigh right now, dude, I don't even know where to start here. Because again, last year, everyone knows it at this point. He finished only behind Aaron Judge for American League voting of MVP, 60 home runs, 125 runs, drove in. I mean, looking at, and he's going 0 for 3 again tonight. So this is adding that on top of the numbers we're going to speak about tonight against Houston. The Mariners are up 1-0 in Houston right now. But looking at them right now, and he's a hitless streak right now. He's extended with 3 more at bats, 166, 249, 325 slash line. And again, the collapse has been dramatic for him, and no regular hitter in baseball has seen a larger OPS decline from 2025 to 2026 than Cal's 384-point drop. And, we always talk about the underlying metrics, and it's not just what's happening on the field and the results. Well, his hard hit rate has fallen from 50% to 29%.
That's insane.
Steepest declines that you'll see in the league. And again, he had 2 hits late last night. He still spent nearly 2 weeks without a hit dating back to April 27th against Minnesota. And I think a lot of this conversation about Cal Raleigh is doom and gloom. And it's hard not to be, especially when we watch something like this, because the numbers suggest that this is more than just ordinary regression after a career year. I mean, he hasn't really experienced a significant drop in bat speed. If you look at those numbers on Baseball Savant, StatCast measures him at 74.7 miles per hour this season. Last year was 75.2 miles per hour. So it's not that. The strikeout rate has increased from 27% to 31%, but that alone doesn't explain the extent of all these struggles, but especially where you have guys that do produce on the field and strike out a large clip. I mean, look at Kyle Schwarber, James Wood strikes out a lot. Murakami is going to be striking out a lot, but again, we're seeing what he's doing power-wise. The largest issue appears, and a lot of Mariner fans point to this, is the quality of contact from Cal. Mm-hmm. The heart rate has cratered from really what was elite last year to one of the weakest marks in all of baseball, not just in his position, not just in power hitters, not just compared to last year. His launch profile is kind of similar to last year, but the damage on contact has disappeared almost entirely. And according to MLB.com, there was an article by Mike Petrillo. The underlying explanation points towards timing. And I'm curious your thoughts on this, because he has struggled heavily against velocity, hitting just 0.69, 156, 172 on pitches over 95 miles per hour entering Tuesday's game. So the StatCast data does say he's making contact deeper in the zone than he did in the 2025 season. And last year, a big reason why he was so successful came from catching pitchers further out in front, especially as a pull-oriented guy that's going to be out there pulling the ball. This year, he's making contact roughly 2 inches deeper, which is a little bit of a small difference. But again, it can dramatically impact your barrel quality. Harold Reynolds was talking about this on MLB Network. He was talking about the timing mechanism, which is why I bring up the timing piece here and the leg kick we are seeing. He was suggesting that Cal Raleigh's footwork has been delayed. Maybe he's in his head because he is struggling. We've seen that happen with hitters. He's arriving late against fastballs. I don't know, man. Even if you look at his stance too, and this is fascinating to me because you want to nitpick and figure out why he is struggling so badly, because he's a likable story. Everyone wants to see him succeed. The Mariners were a great story last year. We're hoping that we knew he wasn't going to hit 60 home runs again, but we didn't think the drop would be like this. People are looking at his stance. 24.8 inches between his feet last season, 29.2 inches. Is that the reason why? You can't say it is, but again, everyone's looking at all these small details. So again, the physical factors, this is the other thing a lot of Mariners fans on social media are pointing to. This guy has been playing through being hurt for the longest time. He did it last year. He's doing it this year. It's potentially that it's catching up to him right now, playing a very tough position, the grind of last year, the pressure that 60 home runs in the chase did last year, playing late into the year last year. Sure. He talked about right side discomfort. A lot of this has been followed the return from that injury we saw earlier in the year. It sucks because, again, you're digging yourself into a deep hole where it's almost a situation where you're looking at historic territory. And we're not going to sit here and talk about Chris Davis or Craig Counsell and all the stuff that we've seen historically in a bad way for baseball players when they're slumping like this. We don't want to see a player like this, a huge superstar that has been developed in the Pacific Northwest, fall on hard times like this, but that's exactly what we're seeing right here. Just your thoughts on everything we've seen with this slump. Can he pull out of this? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, here's what I'll say. Like all that guesswork as far as like pulling apart the analytics and like what is it? Like you said, the amount of inches between his feet and his stance. He certainly looks late on almost everything when you watch him. Anything with velocity. Just watch like 10 of his at bats, and you're gonna come away being like he's late on everything. Now, what that is, it's the leg kick, is it the stance? That is anybody's guess here. The thing is, when you are mired in as big of a slump as Cal Raleigh is, with the high expectations he has, and when your team is not winning as many games as you're expected to win, I guarantee you he's also digging into those things, trying to figure it out. And sometimes it starts as a physical problem and then creeps into your brain because you're looking at all these different things, and it becomes paralysis by analysis. And I think we're all guilty of that in the game of baseball, where you're overdoing the analyzing. And sometimes you need to go back to basics: see ball, hit ball, get the ball right back up the middle, right back to the originator, right? Like, so he probably has a bunch of different people in his ear. I don't know. It's your guess is as good as mine. Obviously, like you said, the numbers under the hood surely point to like this is a legitimate issue. Like everything seems off. The in zone contact percentage is down as well. It's not just that he's like chasing and whiffing. It's everything. So that would be my fear as if I was a Mariners fan, I would be fearful that this is now creeped in his head. But I think what you said about the injury is the most likely scenario here. He's kind of run himself into the ground. And because the Mariners are like not playing well or not winning enough games, he probably doesn't want to go for an IL stint. And he probably should go get his head right and his body right. I think that would do him very, very well. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get that news soon. Although he certainly seems like a stubborn guy as far as, not wanting to come off the field. And that's admirable. But I think it's interesting. This led me to looking up all the 60 home run hitters over the years, which is not a lot. It's 7 guys. A couple of those guys like Sosa and McGuire had multiple 60 home run seasons. Sosa had 3. McGuire had 2. You also got Bonds on there with 1. Roger Maris, Babe Ruth, Cal Raleigh. He's in danger here of becoming a not so glorious footnote in that group of massive home run hitters. His projected pace right now for a full season is 166, 26 home runs, 68 RBI, 573 OPS. If you look at all those other 60 home run hitters and look at the season after they hit 60, which is the season that Raleigh's in right now, other than him right now, the worst, and I'm putting air quotes on worsts because these aren't bad, but the worst season for a 60 home run hitter the next year would probably be Roger Maris, who got to the 60 plateau in 1961 and above. And then in 1962, he hit 256, 33 home runs, 100 RBI, 840 OPS. That's significantly better than what Cal Raleigh is on pace for, like way better, worlds better. If you look at Aaron Judge, right, in 2023, which is the year after he joined the 60 home run club, he hit 267, 37 home runs, 75 RBI, 1,019 OPS. And he was limited to just 106 games because of injury. I think maybe that was the toe. Was that the toe year, 2023?
Yeah.
He banged the toe at Dodger Stadium. So, like, those are the worst, quote unquote. I maybe you don't want to count the Sosa, McGuire, Bond stuff because we all know what was going on there. But most of these guys that hit 60 home runs one year, they still have, very, very good seasons the year after, and some of them prolific. So he's in danger of kind of becoming a footnote there. But I don't know. At this point, it's a head scratcher. It's a little hard to watch. You feel bad for the guy. But if it was me, if I'm in that clubhouse, I am trying to get in his ear like, dude, IL stint. Like, you're clearly banged up. You need to get your head right. It's probably the best thing for him right now.
So before we move on away from one of the stats to put in perspective just how fatigue or injury plays a part in this, just putting together last year, 759 combined plate appearances between the regular season and the postseason in 2025, surpassing the previous record by a significant margin. It was 718 set by Thurman Munson in 1978. So the physical toll of catching and playing every day, especially going as deep as the Mariners did last year, it probably plays a part. And you can make the argument that last season was the outlier, but it can't be this dramatic of a swing because we saw what he can do. He has 7 bombs this year, so it's not like he's not hitting for power. I mean, Ohtani right now, as we mentioned before, has single-digit home runs. So it's not really so much the power piece. It's the lack of quality contact that is very concerning, especially when we look at just the player he was last year, making elite contact at such a huge clip.
I mean, when you think about it, like your point about playing deep into the postseason, right? And, playing those extra games that other players are not playing, that's significant. It really is. I mean, as a catcher, it's even more significant. But you name Shohei Ohtani. Look at what he's doing offensively. He's having his own struggles. Vladdy Guerrero, overall, the numbers aren't bad. He's hitting 292, but he's only got 2 home runs in the season. And it's been a long time since he's even gotten an extra base hit. So, like, those are more guys that played deep into the postseason, some super intense series, big time extra innings games. So you do wonder how much of the factor that plays into it. Me personally, I think it plays a pretty big one.
So let's talk about the New York Yankees here. And they played earlier today because of the rain that was coming into Baltimore. So they were the recipient of a pretty lopsided loss to the Baltimore Orioles today. And Anthony Volpe was part of the story. And we'll get into all that. Max Fried. The narrative around New York, especially with the Knicks being off for a week now, has been about the Yankees and how they can't beat quality teams. And that's been, if you listen to WFAN, if you listen to any of the pundits that are looking to get a reaction, the Yankees are 27-17 as we speak right now. They're sitting behind the Tampa Bay Rays, but still quality record, 10 games over 500. But again, every conversation about the Yankees, if you want to be doom and gloom, has been centered around one statistic. They're 1-8 against teams above 500. So this came to light over the weekend, obviously swept by the Brewers, dropping them to 1-5 against winning teams at the time. Baltimore is a team that they lost 2 or 3 from, but they're under 500, so they're not equated into here. This is kind of hard to quantify because this is a subject to debate because it's how unstable, especially early in the year with all these records and who's 500, who's not 500. Quality teams are under 500. We're talking about the Mariners, who we all believe are a quality team. They're under 500. And if you look at there's a piece written by Mike Axia, who was talking about the Yankees record against winning teams. He was saying it means nothing in May because, again, the category changes pretty consistently here. The Yankees entered the Brewers series at 1-5 against teams over 500. But then again, if you look at it from the other side perspective, if they had swept Milwaukee, the Brewers would have dropped back to 500 and the Yankees would have still remained 1-5 against winning teams. So you follow me here? Like, this is not just that. I mean, if you look at the Brewers last year, the Yankees swept in the opening series of the season. They embarrassed them. It was the whole, the huge bat controversy. Milwaukee eventually finished with the best record in baseball. And under an early season measurement, everyone would have said, well, the Milwaukee Brewers are a bad team. Those victories obviously initially counted as wins against a losing team, but they wound up beating a team that eventually had the best record in baseball. So we have a lot of conversation about what it actually means to play against a team there. Now, at the same time, when you look at the volatility around baseball right now, the more conversation is looking at the stats that we actually measure. The Yankees still lead or rank near the top of baseball in all the categories that really matter. WOBA, expected WOBA, and several people have kind of pushed back against the idea that this roster is flawed because there's currently a handful of losses against teams currently above 500. And again, I'm one of those people that will dismiss criticism of the Yankees because they're not relying heavily on singles or contact-oriented baseball like teams like Atlanta or Tampa Bay. You can kind of point to, this is the team we saw last year. They're going to be a team that's going to kind of ebb and flow. Milwaukee's a team that is a good team. They swept them, fine. But the Yankees have won 16 of 19 games before this road trip in Milwaukee. And then they lost 2 or 3 to Baltimore. And again, they've also beating, and I'll pass it to you, several high-end starting pitchers. I have on my list here, Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Cole Reagans, Ranger Suarez, Kyle Bradish, Jacob deGrom they beat twice. So this is a guy, and they can't beat Nate Eovaldi for whatever reason. This is a team that can play meaningful baseball, and I think this is more of a story in the early part of the season because the expectations are super high. It doesn't take away the Yankee start from me, so I don't make anything of it. I think, and again, last thing I will say, the 2009 Yankees were 0-8 against the Red Sox before eventually evening the season series at 9-9. They go on to win the World Series that year. Okay, this is a story, but it's not one that's a major story for me.
Yeah, all right. So as you guys know, if you listen to the show, I have been as positive as you could possibly be about the Yankees. And I really, truly feel that good about them. As an outsider, I'm not overly concerned about the whole against teams over 500 thing. What I will say is we all know how quickly the New York media can take a narrative like this one and run with it. So that would be my only concern. Like the question is, will it get to the players? How will they react? Like, will they hear that noise? And I don't know. A team led by Aaron Judge, I don't feel like that really affects the clubhouse very much. Maybe some individuals, but as a team, I'd be surprised. And here I came into this really wanting to hear your perspective. Like, are Yankee fans truly concerned? It does not sound like you are. And honestly, like that Milwaukee series, and I know we're not counting them in the over 500 thing, but like I watched not pitch by pitch that series, but I watched enough of it where I was thinking, are Yankee fans coming out of this worried about their own team, or are they coming out of it impressed by the Brewers? Because I would think like the Brewers just impressed me, whether it be the comebacks, the walk-offs, Jacob Mizorowski looking just absurdly unhittable
Did
out
tonight
there.
again, too. Did tonight.
Yeah, what an animal. That guy's becoming a thing of his own. But I think sometimes you just got to tip your hat to the other team. I think the biggest story, I know Volpe's back, he already made an error today, so that's going to get some publicity on the social media. But I think the story here is Max Fried. Like, I think this is the concern. If I'm concerned about anything, this is it. I saw Karen on the train. Karen's one in our fantasy baseball league a few days ago, and we were talking for a little while before she got to her stop. And I asked her how she felt about the Yankees, and she's saying she felt pretty good, like most Yankee fans do. And I said to her, I said, I'm not saying this. I'm saying this like I literally feel this way. At that point, a few days ago, I felt like, as currently constructed, the Yankees were the better team than the Dodgers. And some people probably are going to hear that and be like, it's like hyperbolic, it's ridiculous, it's kind of overstating, jumping the gun. But the reason I felt that great about the Yankees is because of the pitching. We know what the offense is capable of. Yes, you're right. They kind of ebb and flow because they're so power-based. But that rotation, Max Fried pitching at his best, Cam Schlittler just looking like a future top 3 starter in the league, if not this year. And then Carlos Rodon coming back. Will Warren looking like he's taking the next step. Garrett Cole eventually coming back. Like it seemed like such a luxury. If you take Max Fried out of that picture suddenly, I feel not completely differently because it's still much better than most people's pitching situations, but I feel differently. I suddenly don't feel like, hey, they could take down the Dodgers, and I feel confident about that. So this is big. I know he tried to downplay it a little bit afterwards, but when it's the elbow and when you kind of come out that quickly and abruptly, it has to be a concern, and I'm sure Yankee fans are kind of waiting for true results, imaging with bated breath right now.
Yeah, when you hear imaging, you hear elbow, your antenna goes up, negativity all over the place. Fried's comment, as you mentioned, he said he was not too worried about a super long-term thing. He talked about the tightness that affected him during numerous starts this year. So if you want to be glass half full type of guy, this is a situation where you can look at his quotes and hopefully it is just different than most situations. And again, Boone was talking about this in the post game and talking about his stuff was down. And he said it would take him 2-3 hitters in the inning to get up to 95 miles per hour. And that's not the Fried we've been seeing in the beginning of the year. And again, they are pulling from a huge strength. And this is how baseball works itself out. There was a huge conversation. We're going to talk about Volpe in a second, where Caballero was named the starter and Volpe has to stay in AAA and figure it out. Well, Caballero's on the IL. Now Volpe finds his way up there. It's the same thing with the pitching, where it feels like at some point we're like, who's going to beat the Yankees when you have Cole coming back and Rodon coming back? And as you mentioned, Schlittler and a Fried pitching the way he is. Well, it does work out that way, where now it seems like no matter what, Fried thinks he can make his next start. Not happening. There's no way that Fried's going to get out there and have his next start in 5 days. That being said, if he can avoid an IL stint or have a short one, that's a win in my book. Because the Yankees at this point, we talk about all these guys on this team. We talk about Aaron Judge. We talk about the importance of all these different role players. Max Fried has been immensely important since he's joined the New York Yankees. Oh, yeah. He's a guy that has anchored this staff. He's a streak stopper in the wrong direction. He's a guy you can lean on to go out there and give you quality stuff every time out there. And you have to sit here with bated breath with the imaging results. And at the same time, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails with the anticipating the return of Garrett Cole, and takes all that anticipation away, because Max Fried at this point is the ace of the staff. And I know these guys are going to be grabbing at the flag, and it's going to be Schlittler and Cole. That's good competition. But for me, Max Fried is the ace. He's my ace on this New York Yankees team, and they need him to be healthy. And if he's not, It's a problem, like you said. And does that make me believe they're not a postseason team if he's out for the year? No, but it is a huge hit to the Yankees. And one more thing just about just how fast the news cycle moves in baseball, where everyone is so down on the Yankees from being swept in Milwaukee, then losing 2 out of 3 to Baltimore. No, let's not forget the drubbing they put on the Red Sox. I know the Red Sox are down and out, but still to go into Fenway Park and go out there and sweep them, big deal. At the same time, beating the Texas Rangers 4 of 6, beating the Mariners. I know they're struggling. They're still beating teams that are quality and impressive ways too, and coming back in ways that they're showing heart. So just, I'm not letting one weekend in Milwaukee change my perspective of who this team is. I think it's more indicative of who the Milwaukee Brewers are. And I think some of these teams are playing below 500 or just they're better than their record shows right now. And the Yankees, they have to continue to go through this cycle of battling through the ebbs and flows. As you mentioned, when the power goes out, they have to find other ways to win.
Yeah, and we should mention like that loss today for the Yankees. I mean, obviously Max Fried leaves, but like sometimes you got to tip the hat to the opponent. Kyle Bradish was great for the Orioles, and they need that so badly. His best start of the year. The Orioles rotation has been rough. I mean, stop me if you've heard this one before, but it was supposed to be better. Bradish back. Trevor Rogers has not been the guy we saw last year. ERA in the high 5s, I believe.
How weird was that, by the way? Him going on the IL with the flu situation, out for 2 of his starts, then comes back and struggles again. Looks similar to how he did.
It's
very, very bizarre situation with him.
Most people talk about like the offense of Baltimore. Like, why aren't they better? They have all these pieces, and that's a story for sure. Like, why is it not able to click? Like, they have so much talent there. Why is it not clicking? But the pitching is a story too, man. But if you're a Baltimore fan, you have to hope that Bradish's start today against a really great offense is a sign of things to come and not just a one-time thing. And just to finish up on the Yankees, think about how big of a story the logjam was in the offseason. Like, wait a minute, Grisham accepted the qualifying offer. We re-signed Cody Bellinger. Where are Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones going to go? Oh, shortstop. We have Caballero. What's going to happen when Volpe comes back? Somehow, and I'm not a believer in the whole everything will work its way out thing. I know a lot of baseball fans, when you have a logjam, say like, oh, it's going to work its way. And we saw in Baltimore that wasn't always true for the Orioles with all the prospects over the years, and sometimes got messy. But for the Yankees, a quarter of the way through the season, every single one of those dudes, Spencer Jones up here now, have now contributed at some point for the Yanks. So it has worked out for them.
So with Anthony Volpe coming back, that's part of the story. Obviously, Caballero's injury opened the door for Volpe to come back after his rehab assignment following the shoulder surgery back in October, and drew some attention in a negative way. Committed an error at shortstop, and a lot of people are looking at, as far as Caballero goes, hadn't made an error since April 13. Brooks Shulman made an error yesterday, so the previous night. But again, as Caballero was playing pretty flawless defense, as good as you could play defensively at shortstop, and Volpe comes in on a relatively routine play. It's not what you want to do to boot a ball like he did. So a lot of pressure on him, maybe less pressure because Caballero is not sitting on the bench behind him. But I just thought the conversation around New York was interesting, that Boone made it clear that this is Caballero's job. And Caballero wants so badly to be back on the field because he does not want to be Wally pipped. He doesn't want to sit there and say, I'm not letting Volpe take my job, because at some point he is the golden child. He's the guy that the Yankees want to play. He feels like, in their eyes, is the future at shortstop. And if he gives them a reason, he's going to be there. But doing what he did today in a 7-0 loss to the Baltimore Orioles and booting a ball, that's going to leave the door open for Caballero, and right back to AAA goes Anthony Volpe unless he plays unreal. And that's how it should be. Meritocracy type of situation in New York.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be very interesting to see what happens when Caballero is back, because I think he's a fan favorite. Obviously, he's gotten the coach's eyes and the front office's eyes as well. Their tune has changed a little bit about the way they see that situation. So we'll see. It'll be really interesting if Volpe plays really well, like offensively, and limits the errors, doesn't make that a thing again. It'll be very interesting to see how they go about that.
For Caballero, so he's on the IL from being hit by a pitch on the elbow, and he sat out, and then they brought him in as a pinch runner on Monday, and then put him in a situation to have to kind of be on the bases and do that. Now he's on it was a very weird handling. So
Did he hurt his
Caballero's
I thought he hurt his finger or something, like sliding into a base. Am I thinking of somebody else?
He got hit with the elbow and he avoided being an injury. They said it kind of hit him there, and the finger. And then they put him on base. Again, that's another thing, sliding, trying to steal. And he was caught stealing to pretty much end the game last night. And that why if he's on the IL with his finger, why is he pinch running? Bizarre handling of Caballero.
Yeah, that's a strange one.
So quickly here, we'll give you guys an update on Major League Baseball and the Players Association, and sound the breaking news alarm here. They officially began their collective bargaining negotiations Tuesday in New York City, opening discussions on a new labor agreement before the current CBA that does expire on December 1st. So Jeff Passan was on this, talking about the meeting, and was talking about both sides presenting just very broad overviews of what their expectations are. Formal proposals are expected to come during future meetings. So this negotiations, I know it feels like, oh, nice, they're getting started. Well, this is slightly later than the previous bargaining cycle. In 2021, opening presentations between the league and the union began in April before the expiration of the prior agreement eventually led to a lockout. So if you want to be a pessimist, they're not at the table right now as soon as they should have been. And when the previous CBA expired on December 1st, 2021, MLB immediately instituted a lockout, which we, again, first work stoppage we saw since 1994 and 1995. And a freeze on transactions that lasted until March 10th, 2022, ending in time just to preserve a full 162. And hopefully, if we're in a situation where there is any sort of lockout, that we can have a full 162. We don't have to sit here and discuss all the economics of baseball, because there is several things, again, that we can go on heavily monitoring as a baseball fan of how bad a lockout will be. But financial imbalance, a salary cap, things like that are going to be the conversation. Because, again, the popularity of the game is rising. Game 7 of the 2025 World Series became the most watched MLB game since 1991. The 2026 World Baseball Classic repeatedly drew ratings comparable to the recent NBA Finals. You don't want to let that go by the wayside with a petty lockout.
Yeah, no, not much to say here. I mean, just I'm happy they're at the table and they're not waiting until the season's over. It's funny. I heard Craig Carton, New York radio personality, allude to this last week, at the end of last week, saying to his partner, Chris McGonigal, that he was hearing that they were going to get to the negotiating table very soon and weren't going to wait as long as some people thought they were going to wait. And I was like, what source does this guy have that he's not revealing? I thought it was BS. And then like 2 days later, I hear this. And again, it's pretty much just like you said, like opening statements, basically. And then we'll see what happens from there. But happy they're not waiting too long. With that being said, I'm not going to be overly optimistic. I'm not going to be overly pessimistic. To be completely honest, I'm a little more concerned right now with the MTA potential strike coming up. As someone who rides the train to work every day, they're supposed to be at the negotiating table with the state or whatever it is, city. I don't know. But yeah, so that's what my eyes are on. But good for them getting the conversation started.
So we'll certainly keep you guys up to date as those news continue to pile in. But we want to give some love to Michael Harris. I feel like on every episode we talk about a different Atlanta Brave, and for good reason.
Yeah, seriously.
Michael Harris II is off to his best offensive start in his career. And again, we looked at the last 2 seasons, pretty inconsistent at the plate. And we watched him collect 4 hits against the Dodgers on Friday, which pushed his batting average above 300, raising his season production to a career best 139 WRC plus through 38 games. And it's hard to believe, again, because he feels like he's been in the league forever. He's only 25 years old, and he's in his 5th major league season. He's part of the young core of the Atlanta Braves, and he appears to be fully tapping into the pedigree that the Atlanta Braves believed in. And everyone looked at him back before his 2022 debut like, this is a guy we're going to build around. Getting to the majors at age 21, you know the story at this point. Signs that 8-year, $72 million extension during his rookie year, makes him a part of this core with Acuna. Ozzie Albies, of course, on the other side of it as well. I think what's really more remarkable about this, because we saw him be productive even when the offensive numbers did dip. I mean, the strikeout rate was improving from when he was a rookie. He kind of made jumps progressively each year. Even though it wasn't as good as his rookie year, he was making sort of the maturity you want to see in a player as he gets a little bit older. And 2025 for me, again, last year was more about durability, staying on the field, played a career high 160 games, reached his first 2020 season. And now he's kind of building on top of that as well, which is awesome to see. And maybe it's the comfortability in this lineup for the Atlanta Braves, a winning lineup. We already talked about Matt Olson. We can talk all day about what they're doing offensively. He's becoming kind of this player where we're looking at as potentially one of the most dangerous spots in any lineup, which is awesome to see. And I'll let you kind of go through some of the underlying stats I'm sure you have in front of him. The improvement has been stark, and he's a player that is just coming up when the moment is the brightest.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Braves, what can they not do this year? So Michael Harris, a great defender. We've known that. offensive has been up and down, kind of like you said. Last year, he was one of the worst offensive players in the league for the majority of the year. He had like one really hot month, but other than that, he was one of the worst offensive performers in Major League Baseball by a lot of metrics. We can go back and look at it. But this year, well, all right, so when you put him on the show rundown, sent me what you thought we should go through tonight, I knew he was having a really good season. I don't think I realized how good. So you go to his Baseball Savant page. He's 99th percentile in expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, average exit velocity, and hard hit percentage. 99th in all of those. 93rd percentile in barrel. Like, I didn't realize that he was having that kind of year right now. Like, looks like one of the best hitters in the league right now. And then of course, you kind of try to dig like, all right, what's the change? Like, let me see if there's anything else that stands out here. Year to year changes, right? He's actually chasing just as much as last year. So that's not it. And he's actually whiffing more. So you kind of say like, what gives? I think for one, the contact he's making this year is obviously of a higher quality, more authority than last year. And that it does make a big difference. Like, all right, you're whiffing even more, but what's happening when you make contact? Are you barreling the ball? He clearly is. He's hitting the ball incredibly hard. Also, this stood out to me. He is crushing fastballs to the tune of a 381 batting average and a 667 slugging percentage against fastballs. 70.6% hard hit against fastballs. Now, to compare that to last year, where he really struggled for the majority of the year, he hit 239 against fastballs last year. He slugged only 439 against fastballs. He hit 54% hard hit percentage. So those are all staggering big time differences year to year. And the other thing, last thing I'll note, pull air percentage, right? Hot topic these days. For him, it's as high as it's ever been, 18.7%. So that has trended in the right direction for him personally. And we'll see if he can keep it going. We know he's going to bring the glove every single night. But man, if he's doing this with the bat, he becomes one of the top 10 players in the league. And I don't think that is overstating it. If he can put this type of offense for an entire season with the defense and the speed that he brings, like one of the best, most well-rounded players in the league at that point.
So again, we talked about Cal Raleigh and his stance. If you look at Michael Harris and what he did, he's moved up further in the batter's box, and his stance is wider than it was last year, opened up the stance by 7 degrees according to all metrics. And those changes have coincided with career highs in bat speed. You mentioned before, 75.1 miles per hour, fast swing rate at 51.4%. And his 16.5 barrel rate and a career best 19.2% pulled air rate. And it seems like, all things told, we saw 20 home runs from him. He's on pace to surpass that, which again, put that with Gold Glove defense. We're looking at a very special player on a very special team. That is kind of one of the stories around Major League Baseball in Atlanta right now.
Yeah, I don't want to say too many nice things about the Braves. I've said enough.
All right. Well, you know what? We're going to be enjoying the Braves. I'm sure next week we'll talk about Drake Baldwin or something. We're going to talk about Drake Baldwin next week.
No, we need a week off of the Braves. Like, no, I'm going to put that rule forth right now. No, no Braves glazing next week.
Okay, no Braves, but unless they do something, Drake Baldwin's on the rundown. I think maybe. All right. Well, let's get to what's the word here and talk about all the other news around baseball. All right, we already talked about some big hitters struggling, and you alluded to some of the issues that may be going through Shohei Ohtani. And I like what you were talking about last week about Shohei Ohtani trying to really focus in on pitching. And maybe that is really just the issue with Ohtani. But for those sleeping under a rock or maybe paying attention to other sports, Shohei Ohtani is pretty much struggling offensively, and he's adjusting his usage a little bit here. We'll talk a little bit about that while he's pitching. He's not typically doing this as we saw last year. Now he's kind of doing one or the other. He's hitting 233 this season, 6 home runs, 767 OPS, numbers well below his usual standard. I think he has 7 home runs now, actually, that I'm saying that, but still single digit home runs. And I think one of the biggest stories, Devin, is that the Dodgers are changing his workload, focusing solely on pitching during days he starts on the mound instead of trying to handle both. Dave Roberts came out saying that he will not hit either Wednesday when he pitches or Thursday as the team continues searching for ways to reset him offensively. So Ohtani right now, I mean, he's tied for the 7th largest decline in WRC plus, owns the 6th largest drop in hard hit rate, the 8th largest drop in barrel rate, the 7th largest increase in pull rate. and adding on top of that, the lowest zone swing rate of his career. So all these combination trends towards a hitter who has become, a lot of people saying, a lot less aggressive on pitches in the strike zone while making weaker contact. All of that together, Ohtani's swinging at fewer strikes than ever before. And when he does connect, he's pulling the ball more often while not driving it with the same authority. Ohtani's not homered while behind in the count in more than 200 plate appearances, which is another thing to discuss here. And I think the slump has become a little bit more noticeable now. I posted a meme in our fantasy baseball chat about Ohtani and the homerless streak, that this was Aaron Judge that put it on a billboard in Times Square. But no one's really talking about this because, again, he's pitching remarkably well this year. He does so many things well. He is the face of the league in so many ways. He hasn't homered since April 26th by my count. One home run over his past 111 plate appearances over his last 17 games. He's hitting 12 for 65, which is good for 185 with only 4 extra base hits. So your thoughts on Ohtani? Is it simply that it's just a situation where he has to kind of go through it? Or is this simply an issue for that? Before I pass to you, my word is timing, because it seems like his timing is also off.
Okay, my word here is flummoxed, which I was pretty proud of this word. That's a good word item. I'm going to start using that word more often in day-to-day conversations. Flummoxed, because it's confusing. I'm unsure of where to go here. It's Shohei Ohtani, so this is a strange one. Currently projected for a full season line would be 240, 27 home runs, 66 RBIs, 19 stolen bases at his current pace. That's a great season for some people. That's like a first half for Shohei Ohtani as of late. So it's a tricky one here. Under the hood, I know you named some things that, don't look great, but some things look good. A barrel percentage, hard hit percentage, exit velocity look like Shohei Ohtani numbers for the most part. The chase percentage is up by a little over 4%. So that's not a great thing. Although he's striking out less than last year, percentage wise. So I don't know if that really tells much of the story. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to add as far as what I think is causing it, but I will say I think I'm flummoxed. Let's just say that. I'm confused. It's hard to explain. Do I think it's going to last? I think I'd be a fool to say, yes, this is going to be a full season of struggles for Shohei, because it's Shohei Ohtani. I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to all our conversations we have around baseball when we are making this run sheet. He homered last night against the Giants. So that kind of put him in a position. That's why he had him at 6 home runs. He's at 7, but still, he's not putting up the Shohei Ohtani numbers we're used to. But maybe this is the start of it. He's pitching tonight. We're not going to see him hitting, but maybe when he's going over to Anaheim, which is friendly confines where he's been before, that's the series after he leaves San Francisco or leaves playing San Francisco at Dodger Stadium. Maybe we'll get more of the Shohei Ohtani we're used to offensively. But our next story here is the Philadelphia Phillies, and this team, we've discussed it at length with Rob Thompson being fired, and we look at them just kind of taking on some new initiative of trying to right the ship. And right now, we have the Phillies winning 7 of 10, and I'm unsure what they're doing tonight as we sit here, pulling up the schedule as we go. Just speaking about last night's game, Kyle Schwarber homered for the 5th consecutive game Tuesday night, helping the Phillies defeat the Boston Red Sox 2-1, which ties the Phillies record, which is cool to see. Was his major league leading 17th home run of the season, his 6th homer over the last 5 games. He joined Bobby Abreu, Dick Allen, Rhys Hoskins, Mike Schmidt, Trey Turner, and Chase Utley as the only Philly players to homer in 5 straight games. So again, kudos to Kyle Schwarber. And Philadelphia improved to 20-22 overall and won 3 straight, 6 of 8. Look at those numbers. But more importantly, they're 11-3 since Don Mattingly took over for Rob Thompson back on April 28th. My word for him and for this team is fighting. PH fighting, because this is a team that was dead and gone, could have been buried. It seems like they've climbed out of the hole like The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble and putting his hand through the dirt.
Oh, great moment. Great clip. My word here is encouraging. And I mean that for them, but I also mean it in a selfish way as a Met fan, because I see them, if they can kind of dig themselves out of that hole, I feel like maybe we can as well. And I'm saying we as a Mets fan, by the way, who just walked it off here against the Tigers. Kind of a cool walk-off, because Carson Bench singles up the middle to drive in A.J. Ewing. So the youngsters get it done for the New York Mets.
How about that Carson Bench stat that I posted in the chat this morning? Wild stat.
Remind me what it was again?
Let me pull up the exact numbers, because it was jarring. They were talking about this in the fan. I had to drop it in there.
All right,
So
I'll talk about the
essentially,
Phillies. Oh, do you have
go
it?
for it.
Okay,
You
I'll talk
go
about the
for it
Phillies,
first.
and we'll get back to Benj afterwards. So yeah, the word's encouraging here. You mentioned the kind of the changes since Mattingly took over. I'll add to it. Fourth best team OPS since they fired Rob Thompson, only behind the Pirates, Yankees, and I'd give you guys 10 guesses to guess the third team that's above them, and you probably wouldn't get it. The White Sox. Sixth best team ERA since the firing. Zach Wheeler looks like Zach Wheeler. Kyle Schwarber looks like Kyle Schwarber, maybe Kyle Schwarber plus. He's on pace, at least coming into the night, for 66 home runs. By the way, they did lose tonight to the Red Sox 3-1. So the offense seemed to take a night off, but this looks like the real Phillies, the Phillies we kind of expected, the Phillies we've come to know over the past several years. That's what they look like right now. And I think this is what they'll continue to look like, but I don't think you can just completely blow off what has happened to them this season as far as the losing streak. We now know they have that kind of streak in them where they can disappear for a little while. But I do think having Zach Wheeler back in the mix is fantastic for them. And if Schwarber keeps on playing like this, they're going to be super, super dangerous. I think what they need the most, because you got Andrew Painter struggling, what they need the most is Jesus Luzardo to find some consistency. Because this guy, as a fantasy owner of his, I want to pull my hair out. As a Phillies fan, I'm guessing he drives you even crazier. But I think if he can find some consistency, you're in a good spot with Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, and if Luzardo can be the good Luzardo, that's a lot of good right there.
So the stat I have for you for the New York Mets, and this includes tonight. So when Carson Benz drives in a run, the Mets are 11-0. On games when he doesn't, they're 6-25.
Yeah.
He's the engine of the team that we didn't think was going to be the engine.
Dude, I watched him every night, and you'd think Francisco Lindor or Juan Soto would be the heartbeat of the team. Obviously, Lindor not there right now with the injury. Soto missed time too. But you watch this night in and night out, especially since Ben just started playing better, and seems like he's just kind of, it kind of feels like he needed to get his feet wet for a little while and adjust to the game. And he's basically said as much, like adjusting to the game of baseball at this level. He does feel like he's the heartbeat of the team, and like watching just 2 games of Ewing, it feels like he's going to be right by his side in that way. They just play a different brand of baseball, and listen, they're going to need more than those 2 guys because those guys don't bring a whole lot of pop, but you do enjoy the way they play the game, and hopefully the youngsters can kind of remind some of those vets that like this game is fun. Like we're here, let's have some fun. This game is supposed to be fun.
So also, congratulations, Don Mattingly. Last night was his 900th managerial victory, which makes him the 6th active manager to reach that mark. Terry Francona, AJ Hinch, Dave Roberts, Kevin Cash, and Craig Counsell sit in that category as well. So shout out to Donnie Baseball. But our final what's the word here is twofold. That Shane McClanahan and really the Rays are the best team in the American League right now. My word for them, before I get into some conversation, is momentum. Because as I mentioned, 28-13, their pitching staff continues to be one of the biggest reasons why, and Shane McClanahan is one of those big reasons. So entering Monday's series against Toronto Blue Jays, they had allowed 3 runs or fewer in 15 of its previous 16 games. Toronto scored 5 runs on Monday, but the Rays still came out away with a victory. They outlasted, winning 8-5. But again, one of the reasons you wanted to talk about Shane McClanahan, his recent stretch of dominant pitching, 5 scoreless innings while allowing just 1 hit and 1 walk, striking out 7. He did not allow a hit until the 5th inning. He didn't factor into the decision, but he did extend his career best scoreless streak to 21 2/3 innings. Through 8 starts this year, he sits at 4-2, a 2.27 ERA, so not quite in our under 2 ERA crew, but he has recorded 41 strikeouts against 15 walks, holding opposing hitters to 168 batting average. And one of the biggest stories is because, again, it's coming back from Tommy John surgery, a left triceps nerve injury that he suffered during spring training last year. You can still see the Rays are being careful with him. We watched them kind of pull him 80 pitches after 5 innings on Tuesday night, but his performance has been really much an ace-like. And I think that's the biggest sign. Again, you can also look at no signs of injury that had sidelined him over the past 2.5 seasons. His ERA is 5th best in the American League among pitchers who have worked at least 35 innings. Fellow Rays starter Nick Martinez is 4th with a 1.7 ERA. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Racking up 41 strikeouts, allowing only 24 hits. This is awesome because, again, you look at the extended absence that seemed to affect him early through his first 4 starts, but it seems like he's really righted the ship since April 25th. His last 4 starts are just awesome. 5 innings pitched, 6 innings pitched, 5 2/3, 5 innings pitched, no runs allowed, and in the ballpark of 7 Ks, 5 Ks, 4 Ks, 7 Ks. So this is one of the biggest developments behind Tampa Bay's strong start, not only because he's pitching well, it's because he's healthy. It's awesome to see. And then add on top of that, Nick Martinez owning a 1.7 ERA. My situation here for the Rays and Shane McClanahan is momentum, because it feels like they're building on itself.
Yeah, my word is tireless, and this is specifically for McClanahan, because to get back to where he is right now, he had to be tireless, because it just seemed like injury after injury, road bump after road bump, and he's finally seemingly back. Even the beginning of the year, you could tell he was fighting himself a little bit. He'd show some frustration because he was trying to be the guy he used to be, and he just wasn't there yet. And now we're starting to at least kind of see the guy he used to be. Over the last month of play, he's made 6 starts. I tweeted this out earlier. He's gone 4-1 in those 6 starts with a 1.74 ERA. That ERA is the 7th best in Major League Baseball during that time span. For the season, this is what stands out to me, McClanahan. For the season, batters are hitting 0.87 against his changeup. 37.6% whiff rate against that pitch. He's getting back to that dominant feel with that pitch. So I'm just very happy to see him look like he's back, because I know it's kind of an emotional road for Shane McClanahan to get back here. And the Rays are fun. We've talked about them on the show. I feel like we were almost ahead of the curve. I think they were on the show run 2 weeks ago or something like that, and now everyone's talking about them. But I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about them. So it's a fun story in Tampa so far.
Yeah, I mean, I was up close and personal with it, watching my Yanks get swept at Tropicana Field. This is the real deal. This team is a team that's to be reckoned with, and they're back to Rays baseball, where they're bringing the best out of all these guys. And if Shane McClanahan is the pitcher we think he could be, it's an awesome story. No matter what team you root for, the fact that he was out for essentially 2.5 seasons and now he's back doing his thing at such a high level, how can you not root for a guy like that? But let's move into our next story here and talk about the polls around baseball. All right, so Devin posted a poll on our Twitter at Tablesetters Pod. You guys can check out all the conversation there. Like I said, Devin run the machine over there, but you posted a poll, I think it was about stats and what people actually dive into and what actually resonates with them, right?
Yeah, a little different than usual. Usually the polls we put out there are player driven or about certain teams or divisions, but this one, it just kind of popped up as I was looking up some stats. And by the way, the poll segment, just a reminder, is brought to you by the Landing Strip in Bohemia, New York. Go check it out. Someone's going to Google that and probably shouldn't. But so anyway, apologies.
We need an airplane noise of an airplane landing.
We do need an airplane. All right. So anyway, the question was, and we'd like to hear from you guys. This poll will be up for, it looks like, until late Thursday. So you could chime in the comments or just vote. But when evaluating starting pitchers, and that could be for fantasy, that could be for other purposes, right? Which measure is most important to you? And the choices: ERA, WHIP, K percentage, or K to walk percentage. It's an interesting thought, and I was kind of going through it myself, what would I pick? And here's what I'll say: a couple good comments here. Billy the Mountain commented, and this I thought was a good one. One of them is a distinct goal. I think he's talking about ERA. The other 3 are potential factors to that goal. I'd say hitting the goal itself is more important than how a pitcher gets there. It's well put. And then Bound to Bets put, honestly, XFIP. So that was not one of the choices. Maybe I should have included it. Remember, I can only include 4 choices on Twitter for some reason. But yeah, XFIP would be a good one too. I kind of agree with that. But out of the 4 choices I put, as of now, WHIP and strikeout to walk percentage are leading, both 36%. And then strikeout percentage and ERA both have 14%, which I was a little bit surprised by. Me personally, it depends on what I'm looking for. If I'm trying to evaluate and look at the next big things in pitching or the younger pitchers or prospects, I'm paying attention to K to walk percentage more than I am ERA and that kind of stuff, because I think that's what eventually will translate. K percentage as a whole, it depends, man, because if they're walking a bunch of people too, it's not as sexy to me. Now, if I'm looking at more veteran pitchers that have more time under their belts, I think ERA is a little more meaningful at that point to me. But you personally, whether it be from a fantasy perspective or just kind of looking at your own team that you root for, which of those analytics are you looking for the most?
I'm with you as well. It's the strikeout to walk ratio because, like you said, that's indicative of success on the mound because you're creating traffic. If you're walking guys, eventually that will blow up in your face. So
Right.
I look at a guy like AJ Burnett. He was successful in a lot of his career as part of the '09 Yankees, as I referenced before. But this is a dude who walked the ballpark and was a big reason for his undoing in a lot of ways. But he had electric stuff. If he only could get that under control, and I guess it's like a situation of what made him so good because he was effectively wild. He was a guy that just befuddled you as sitting there, and you want him to have the control. So to me, it's the ratio part because if you're walking guys all over the place, eventually doesn't matter how many guys you strike out, you're gonna get yourself in some trouble.
Yeah, I think that statistic I feel like has gotten a little more popular in recent times. But I know personally when I put out like a graphic with kind of the pitching leaders, the metric I usually use is K to walk percentage. And we're going to talk about ERA in like a second here in our sub 2 ERA crew segment. And that's a fun one. We enjoy that one. But yeah, K to walk percentage really does kind of carry a lot of weight to me. But XFIP's a good one. XFIP, you can talk about Sierra. Like I know there's more guys. I know these are not the only four, but and that's part of the great part about analytics, but also sometimes tricky and frustrating because there's so many different ones that you do have to kind of go through and figure out which one is the most meaningful to you.
So I'll pass the baton to you for this under 2 ERA crew where I mentioned Nick Martinez, so spoiler that he's in that, but anyone else joining him for the party sipping on some punch?
Yeah, all right. So we got 7 dudes, which is kind of, I felt like this has been the number for the most part, give or take 1 or 2 in the sub 2 ERA crew. Cam Schlittler leading the way at 1.35 stud. Davis Martin is still there. He's been there for a few weeks. Still looking good. 1.62 ERA for Mr. Martin. Jose Soriano has fallen down the list a little bit, but still hanging tough there. 1.66. Nick Martinez, like you said, 1.7, right in the middle of that pack. Bryce Elder, this dude is not going away. What Jeremy Hefner has done with him is pretty unbelievable. 1.81 for that Braves rotation there. Bryce Elder. Clay Holmes, 1.86, holding it down for the New York Mets. And Paul Skeens, here he is. What a shock. 1.98 after once again flirting with a no-hitter. Still has not gotten that complete game under his belt. Went another 8 innings. Had one of the best starts of his career. And let's remember, I believe his ERA for his full seasons has been under 2 his first 2 years in the bigs, I believe. So He's on track to do that once again. Just the unbelievable consistency of Paul Skeens. And remember, his season started with getting absolutely blown up by my New York Mets. I don't think he made it out of the first inning, partly in thanks to O'Neill Cruz not knowing how to play the outfield. But for him to already be under 2 after having that awful first start, that's pretty hard to do.
For sure. I mean, I was watching Skeens start last night. I'm playing him in fantasy baseball, so I was happy he didn't go a complete game, but he's just electric, dude. Like when he's out there, the poise he has, he's one of a kind. He's a one-of-one specimen. I'm sure he's going to be on this under 2 ERA all year if he has his way, because you feel like he has recovered for, as you mentioned, getting blown up on opening day. He took that shit personally, and now he's going out there and rewriting the ship. And the Buccos are a good story as well. We didn't talk a lot of Bucco baseball, but they're a good story around baseball as well, with some fun reasons to go out to the ballpark and check them out. But let's talk about our coming around third and what we're looking forward to this weekend. All right, as we wrap up the episode, again, we want to thank you guys for hopping in here. As we mentioned before, follow us on Tablesetters, all our social media platforms, at Tablesetters Pod on IG and on X. You guys can also check us out on YouTube at Tablesetters Baseball. Leave a 5-star review on any of the audio platforms. Like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps the algorithm. And of course, join the conversation. Let us know what you want to talk about. As far as what I'm looking forward to, Devin, is, again, it's Northeast Bias. It's New York. It's the Subway Series. I understand the Mets are not playing as well as you would expected them to going into this. Of course, with the young players and the walk-off win tonight, maybe there's some juice at Citi Field. Mets sitting at 17-25 as we sit today. Yankees at 27-17. The Subway Series, I know it's overplayed and it's not the same novelty it was when it first started, but it's still fun and is a reason to check this out. And it's gonna see a lot of memories come up of baseball, good and bad, as far as Mets and Yankee fans go.
Yeah, it still carries a lot of weight. I mean, especially after the Juan Soto Yankees jumping to the Mets thing. By the way, Soto, I think, left the game tonight after fouling a ball like right off the top of his foot. I
I
don't
saw
know
the
what the
X-rays
news
were
there.
negative. I saw the
All right,
update.
hoping
X-rays are negative. He's fine.
Yeah, hoping that's, I mean, the Mets cannot afford anything with Soto right now. But I'm with you. I mean, Yankees Mets does carry weight. The Mets, if they can sweep the Tigers tomorrow, that'll do wonders for them heading into the Subway Series. They're hosting it at Citi Field. I, as a Met fan, am very concerned that, as of now, I feel like that stadium is going to be like 70% Yankee fans. But if the Mets can sweep this series against the Tigers, then I think more Mets fans will show up. Maybe it's more of a 50-50 split, and it's not embarrassing for Steve Cohen and the New York Mets fans. But there's other ones. This whole weekend is full of like all those like regional conflicts or games. Yankees Mets is not the only one. You get Phillies Pirates, right? You get Orioles Nationals. You get Cubs White Sox, which is actually a very interesting one this year, with the White Sox being a little more relevant, thanks in part to Davis Martin and Munetaka Murakami and some other guys out there. Rangers Astros, Royals Cardinals, Dodgers Angels, Padres Mariners, Giants A's. So like, I know I'm supposed to give you like one series, but it's that fun interleague. And yeah, all these interleague kind of cross-state or regional games meant more when interleague play was a little more rare and it was fresh, but it's still fun to see some of these matchups. Obviously, some of them carry more weight. I think the New York matchup is interesting. I think the Chicago matchup, it still means a lot to people in that area. I mean, Giants A's, I know the Giants are down, but we'll see what they do tonight. So it's a fun weekend for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that they've coordinated in this way. So shout out to the schedule makers to have this done, because this has got to be one of the first times they've had them all happening at one time. I feel like this is the most of the intercity stuff going on, or interstate stuff going on in one weekend.
I feel like they used to do it all the time when interleague play was fresh. But yeah, like in recent years, I don't remember them doing this. I feel like they were more spread out. So just looking through the games, I noticed it, and I'm with you. I don't remember seeing it like this for a while.
And then obviously the Red Sox playing the Braves, and the history there is obviously the Braves used to be from Boston. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot there where you can pull the thread of even historic. So shout out to the schedule makers that they actually had a lot of insight into making this work. But it's going to be fun to see. And you want at the core of what baseball is, you want passionate fans in ballparks and rooting for the teams on the weekends. So this is a big part of what we do as fans. You want to kind of stoke the flames, even the unnatural rivalries. Like I don't know if there's any pure animosity between the Rays and the Marlins, but hey, maybe there is. Maybe there is something there where we actually had something to discuss as far as that goes. But again, Devin, any final words before we get out of here? I know we had a lot of conversation about a lot of different teams. Anything that wasn't on the rundown that you want to put out on Front Street, that some love to a player, maybe some love to a team that doesn't get the love we typically have here?
I mean, we kind of squeezed it in like on the fly with the Mets playing a little better, getting the first two games of this series with the Tigers. So I won't go further into that. Just let's go Mets, finish the sweep tomorrow, bring a little momentum into that Yankee series. So hopefully we don't get completely embarrassed.
Well, we'll see what happens this weekend. Looking forward to it for sure. I'll be out in Astoria for the show at the Bohemian Beer Garden, for the show at the Sandman. So if you guys are in that area, come check it out. It's gonna be packed.
What day is that? What night is that?
It's Saturday night, so that's gonna be at the Bohemian Beer Garden. Sandman is gonna be there. I think he's signing some autographs, and he's gonna be involved physically in some capacity. I know he's retired, but he's gonna be there. I'm lobbying creative to get a beer chugging situation with myself and the Sandman. So make sure you guys stay tuned to that.
I might actually be in Astoria on Saturday. I'll talk to you off air about that a little bit. And I won't be able to be there at night, but I might be there at some point during the day.
All right. Well, you let me know, man. Again, if you guys are in the area, New York area, come support independent wrestling. I'll be out there doing the ring announcing. But we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. We appreciate your support as always. But until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.